Monoprinting is a form of printmaking where each print is unique and different. You're using the same images to create multiple different prints by arranging all of your elements in a variety of ways. You can start your monoprint by creating a really interesting base layer. In this case, I use different inks and watercolor to create an interesting, more colorful background to print all of my monoprints on. These are some examples of using the same imagery to create different compositions through layering and through adding watercolor and different washes and patterns on the background. Each new layer makes the piece more interesting and unique in the series. For my monoprints today, I'm going to use both my printing blocks and my screen prints to create my monoprints. I want there to be a sort of pattern in the background, so I'm going to use the top part of my flower screen print because I think these flowers will create a really nice pattern in the background. You'll notice in the video that I registered my print partially, but I also put some newsprint underneath. I'm not printing the whole image, and I don't want to get my registration paper super dirty, so I'm just going to keep folding this newsprint underneath my print as I'm printing, just so that I can keep that registration sheet clean. So I'm going to keep kind of turning and moving my prints around. My goal is to fill most of the background with some form of this imagery. I'm also using a lighter color because this is the patterned background for my print. So I don't want my background to stand out more than my foreground, so I'm using this light blue. This is actually leftover ink from the previous unit, so if you've got some leftover ink, this is a great way to use up some leftover ink. I'm not going to use my registration solely for lining up my print, so I'm just kind of eyeballing each new layer that I print on top. And it does smudge just a little bit, and I'm okay with that because this is a monoprint and they're all different. I've finished with my screen print and I've actually let it dry for quite a bit of time. So you'll want to do your first layer probably one class period apart from your second layer. So in this case, my first layer's been drying for a day and now I'm ready to print my second layer. For my second layer, I'm switching to using block printing. So I'm going to use my block prints that I made earlier to create my second layer. I'm also using orange because it's going to contrast this blue really nicely. I'm not going to register this part because I want to place these flowers in a variety of ways all around my print. I'm eyeballing all of this to create balance in my print, so I'm kind of scattering these little flowers all the way around, layering them on top of my patterned flower background that I already have. And then I'm going to be sure to leave some space for my main focal point, which is going to be the rabbit from this last print as well. If you have already used part of your printing plate and you don't want to clean it in between, you can just block that area with some paper towel, and that paper towel will block any residual ink from getting onto your paper where you don't want it. You can also use this technique when you are screen printing by just blocking parts of the screen where you don't want them to be. You can also not ink your whole plate. So you can see on the rabbit that I'm not planning to have the whole rabbit present. I'm just going to ink most of the area where I want it to be on my print, and then I'm going to center the rabbit, which is going to be my focal point, into the area of my print where there is the least amount of other imagery. Even though I'm only using my imagery in this video, you are welcome to collaborate with other students. If you feel like your ideas would go well together, you should ask them for permission to use part of their screens or to use some of their block printing images so that you can create some collaborative, unique pieces of artwork incorporating multiple different styles of imagery. In this printmaking process, you should plan to make at least 2 monoprints, but I would shoot for between 3 and 4.